And we are on the air. It is the midweek edition of Legal AF. You know that. You didn't just stumble across this. You're devoted to us the way we're devoted to you. We appreciate you being here with us. Karen, we are so close to this network hitting 3 million free subscribers. I always said it was election day. At the rate we're going, it'll happen before Labor Day, but only by word of mouth and organic growth. And I welcome each and every person here on our live recording of our podcast. We've got a lot to talk about. And we always have to do it at the intersection of law and politics. Let's kick off with the politics for a minute. We got a surging Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. We've got a Biden administration that continues to deliver for the American people. We've got the inflation rate on the heels of the Inflation Reduction Act being passed on party line votes over a year ago, working, getting inflation down below 3%. We had two big announcements that are going to be coming out of the Biden-Harris administration as we continue to focus on the future Harris administration. There already is an administration in place that she's a part of, and they're delivering for the American people. They're going to be making an announcement on Thursday, likely to declare that at least 10 major prescription drugs on the Medicare list that help everyday Americans for everything in their life that ails them are going to be substantially reduced in price because of a year-long negotiation process. In addition, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris having given up on canceling student loan debt. And I think that's going to happen before the end of the year. And certainly the two other things that Joe Biden wants to accomplish as part of his legacy, on the unshackled Joe Biden, one of them is to get all those federal judge positions filled. And to surpass by not a little but a lot Donald Trump's list of federal judges at the appellate level, at the trial level, not the Supreme Court level. We don't think that's going to happen in time, but certainly in every other place. And then lastly, a little known, little covered fact. New York Times did a good piece on it 2 days ago, Karen, is naturalization of immigrants to make them new citizens is happening at a record pace by the Biden-Harris administration, cutting in half the amount of time it's taken to make new citizens, many of them of voter age and many of them in battleground states. 3.3 million people have become new U.S. citizens under the Biden-Harris administration, many of them voting in November. What a record. And then you've got the criminal justice system, the attorney generals around the country, the prosecutors around the country in New York, in D.C., again, holding Donald Trump's feet to the fire. Bad week for him legally, Karen. We're going to talk about it all here. Some things just are going to fall off the continuum. We don't even have time to talk about them. Like he's gotten sued by the auto workers, by the UAW, because of national labor relations violations related to his interview, Trump's interview with Elon Musk, in which they both threatened to fire workers who are just trying to unionize at the Tesla plant since 2016. That's a big no-no. Donald Trump could likely be sued related to the French female boxer in the Olympics who won the gold medal because of his consistent attacks on her sexual identity, just like he attacks Kamala Harris's racial identity and her personhood in every way, shape, and form. And so on the heels of that, we got three major topics we're going to talk about today. We're going to do what's going on in New York as Judge Merchan is about to make his ruling on Friday about how the immunity decision for the United States Supreme Court maps onto the 34 felony convictions that Donald Trump was given by a jury, if it does at all. That's on Friday. September 18th is the sentencing, but there was yet another attempt to recuse or disqualify Judge Merchan, and Judge Merchan has issued his ruling. We'll talk about that. Then we need to talk about Donald Trump's threats to sue the United States of America, the very same government and people he plans to represent for over $100 million. He says he's filed a claim with the government telling them he's going to sue them for what he calls malicious prosecution related to the Mar-a-Lago indictment because he got his handpicked judge, Judge Cannon, to dismiss that indictment. We're going to talk about that and the chances of that succeeding at all, or Donald Trump and his lawyers getting sanctioned again. And then we got to talk about some developments involving MAGA Trump lawyers and people that follow Donald Trump, like clerks in county clerks handling elections, and what's happened to them as they've gotten sideways in various court proceedings. One of them, a county clerk, being found guilty by a jury in under 4 hours in Mesa, Colorado, for her role in allowing Dominion voting machines to be broken into, data to be downloaded by people who are right wing MAGA, like Patrick Byrne of Overstock.com and Mike Lindell, the pillow guy. That's Tina Peters. We'll talk about her case, and we'll relate it to a lawyer who has now gotten in trouble with a DC federal judge and has been disqualified from continuing to represent Patrick Byrne of Overstock.com in the Dominion voting machines or voting systems defamation case that's going against him, and then separately Rudy Giuliani and Sidney Powell and others in the District of Columbia. So summer is over. The summer doldrums are over. We're at the intersection of law and politics. Karen, how are you?
I'm good. I was transfixed by your beautiful sunset that was happening while you were speaking. That's what's so great about doing this live at 8 p.m. Eastern on the East Coast, right?
Well, it's a birthday present for you because, as I like to call it, it is Birth Cafe Day.
Well, that was
Or,
yesterday. That
or it
was
was
yesterday.
yesterday. Well, I didn't
That
get a
was
chance. I
yesterday.
didn't catch to talk to you live yesterday. I could only text you. So happy. But we'll take a 1 second break for everybody in the audience to wish Karen a very happy birthday. Couldn't think of anybody I'd like to wish happy birthday to than Karen, for sure.
I want to say one thing about what you just said, though.
Yeah, of
Thank you.
course.
I appreciate it very much. On Monday, I was driving on a long car drive on the way back from dropping my youngest off at a program that she's going to. And I was like, what am I going to do on this long car ride back? And I go and I look online and I go to my Twitter account, or X, and I was like, what is this Spaces Live thing happening with Elon Musk and Trump? Because, of course, I probably was the only person who didn't get the memo ahead of time. And I literally stumbled upon it. And at first I thought, is this real? I mean, first of all, Donald Trump was speaking with the strangest lisp. I thought it was an SNL skit for a minute of somebody imitating him. And then, of course, unfortunately, it was real. And it was 2 hours of my life that I wish I could get back. It was really terrifying, really just all over the place. And I do not recommend that anyone listen to it, but it's just bananas to me the way Elon Musk really just has completely sold himself out and gone totally hook, line, and sinker, all in with Donald Trump in the weirdest way. Like Donald Trump would just say things that were absolutely false, and Elon Musk would just accept it. I mean, I was shocked, actually, and I couldn't wait for it to end, and I couldn't believe it kept going. So what a strange experience that
This
was.
this is a stream of nothing but happy birthday KFA, including people making contributions to the show and to the network. I
Aw.
just wanted to show how much you're loved. Yeah, we remember a long time ago, you, me, and a couple of other people, we did a Spaces about
Yeah,
the not quiet quitting of the prosecutors, special prosecutors in the Manhattan DA's office, and our reaction to that. Remember, we had like 20,000
yeah,
in our Spaces. Remember that? I don't even know what
yeah,
Spaces
yeah,
was.
yeah.
Yeah. No, that was crazy. Interview is that's the wrong. I don't know
It
what
was
that
not an
was.
interview.
I don't know who was interviewing who. First of all,
Yeah.
Donald Trump he has no
It
discipline.
wasn't even a conversation. It's like one of them
No,
starts talking, and then
right.
the other one starts talking, and then the other one starts talking, and it was just filled with just I don't know. I guess I don't know why I expected more of Elon Musk, but I did. I expected more of Elon Musk, and I just was so disappointed and terrified at the same time because Donald Trump he's back to, if anyone thinks he changed after
No,
getting nicked in the ear at that rally, whatever you want to say, he absolutely has not changed.
no.
He is
I think
equally as
I think he's
terrible.
suffering some sort of concussive disorder, PTSD, on top of the mental faculty problems he had even before that. But the good news is he's decided that in contrast to a vibrant, robust, enthusiastic, energized Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, who are doing the retail politics of campaigning with 9 battleground states and these amazing throngs of people from tarmac to stadium to podium and everything else. He's decided that he's literally going to just phone this in. He had one stop in Montana. That's not a battleground state. I got news for him. I'm sure there's a Senate seat that's sort of up for grabs, but that he goes off to Montana. That's all he did. And then JD Vance is trying to do sort of full court press by himself, and all he can muster is 5 people behind him at some sort of factory, and then he's got to go do that ridiculous stunt where he photobombed Air Force Two. Secret Service should have taken him out, by the way, on his walk over, except he had Secret Service. So that was an interesting combination. But that's it. It's the quiet quitting of the Trump campaign. And there's even rumors now that watching him looks like a person that wants to be put out of his misery and doesn't really want the job. I mean, even in North Carolina, where he gave a speech that was supposed to be disciplined and focused on the economy, and he made some interesting points that could, in the hands of the right person, be an effective criticism, I guess, of his opponent. But of course, he can't help himself from being the racist misogynist that he is and continuing to attack, Kamala Harris's intellect, misogyny, her racial identity, racist, and everything else. And there we just have Joe Biden getting up every morning, brushing his teeth, trying to figure out with Kamala Harris how to help the American people until 11:59 on the 20th of January. And now the court systems, the spaces thing reminded me, we're going to talk about New York now. Let's dive into New York, Karen. Why don't you take it? It's your old office. They got their conviction on the heels of another set of they got 19 felony. Let's give credit where credit is due. 2 years ago, as a precursor, as a preliminary bout to going after Donald Trump, which I think whet the appetite of Alvin Bragg and taught him that he could break that ceiling and he could go after Donald Trump. They did a test run and they got I think it's 17 count felony conviction for tax evasion and business record fraud involving almost the very same people in terms of witnesses for the prosecution in the Trump organization against Donald Trump's entities. And that's why Alan Weisselberg, the chief financial officer, went to jail for the first time. And then he did it again a year later, different jury, with Donald Trump directly on another set of business record fraud type allegations and got 34 more counts. That there's no prosecutor in America that has nailed Donald Trump more and more regularly and more successfully than Alvin Bragg of the Manhattan DA's office. There's no other way to put it. And so now we're in the last gasps of Donald Trump's having to realize that he's going to lose his appeals on this, that the immunity decision does not help him in New York, the Supreme Court won, whatever life preserver he thought that was. And in the hands of Judge Merchan and Alvin Bragg, he's going to be brought to justice on the 18th of September. With that framing, tell our listeners what just happened with Judge Merchan, and then why don't you go right into what you expect to happen on Friday with the immunity decision that the judge said he's going to be issuing, because he's very timely when he says he's going to do something on a date certain. He does it, and then as we lead into the 18th of September on sentencing.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting because this morning when we were picking topics and you said the Judge Merchan and Donald Trump case, I said, but we covered that last week. What is new? What could possibly be new? It's because he's doing the same thing over and over and over again that it's just shocking to me as a lawyer. I could never do what these lawyers are doing. You and I would get sanctioned by the court if we were to bring the same thing over and over and over again that's been denied on no new grounds, and did it in an untimely way and made these frivolous arguments over and over again. We'd get in big trouble. And that is exactly what Judge Merchan is setting the groundwork or setting the stage for, in case these lawyers don't finally get the message, because they literally filed for the third time another motion to recuse the judge based on this ridiculous claim that because he has an adult daughter who works for a political consulting company in, I think, Chicago, because he has an adult daughter who does that, that somehow he is disqualified and has an interest, a financial interest in this case. And it just makes no sense. And it has been denied over and over and over again. In fact, in a lengthy decision back in 2023, Judge Mershon sought an advisory opinion from the like a judicial ethics body that judges can seek an advisory opinion. In New York and in many jurisdictions, the decision on whether or not to recuse comes from the judge themselves, and you have to ask the judge, and the judge is supposed to look within themselves and see if they can be fair and impartial, and they're governed by judicial ethics, and you can appeal it, but in the first instance you have to go to that judge. And this judge, when this first issue first came up about his daughter and about the fact that he had donated some nominal, I don't remember what it was, $10 or $15 to a Democratic campaign during the Trump election, that he sought an opinion. He didn't think he could be that he needed to be recused. He knew that he could be fair and impartial, but he also decided to get an advisory opinion to see whether or not the judicial ethics bodies that oversee judges agreed with this, and they said they agreed. He did not need to recuse himself, and he wrote a lengthy decision spelling it out. Well, despite that the Trump has done it twice, despite that the Trump has appealed it, and appellate courts have upheld the fact that Judge Mershon did not have to recuse himself. And for whatever reason, Trump's lawyers, once again, same lawyers who tried the case, brought this truly at this point frivolous motion, and they brought it late. I think it was 48 or 50 days after the deadline for post-verdict motions. They just filed this motion for recusal again. They didn't seek permission. They didn't seek leave to have an extension of time. They just filed a motion. You can't do that. When a judge sets a deadline and says, by this date you have to have your motions in, you have to do it. And if you miss that deadline, you have to ask permission to not do it. So not only did they miss the deadline, not only did they not seek permission, they essentially they recycled the same old tired argument all over again. And the judge really smacked him down at this time. And my favorite kind of line in this 3-page order said, that the judge said, it reads, defendant appears to present two arguments in his instant motion, although not entirely clear. Defendant first argues that the court's order restricting extrajudicial statements is unjust and unconstitutional, because they threw in the gag order in this as well, saying that's why he should be recused. And by the way, the judge reminded them, hey, I lifted the gag order on the witnesses and on the jurors. You're just not allowed to go after the prosecutors and the court staff. Anyway, he goes on to say, this argument that they're bringing up, saying that this gag order is unconstitutional and unjust, he says, this argument does not merit extensive discussion, since it does not credibly purport to support the motion for recusal. Rather, it would appear to be nothing more than an attempt to air grievances against this court's ruling. I love that line, because he's basically calling them out, saying, all you're doing is complaining again. You like to complain, and you're doing it again. So he then goes on and says, look, yes, your second argument, that this relationship between the presidential nominee Kamala Harris and his daughter warrants recusal, that this is a change in circumstance now that Harris is the presumptive nominee. And he literally says, I don't need to repeat my legal analysis or decision. And for the third time, for the third time, I am denying this motion. And what the lawyers did was they said there's been a change in circumstance, which is why we're bringing this up now. And the judge said innuendo and mischaracterizations do not a conflict create. Recusal is not necessary. So, I mean, he just really shot them down and essentially said to them that this is, we've shot you down before. The appellate courts have shot you down. And he essentially said, you do it again, and I am going to sanction you. He didn't say that, but what he did was he
Well,
reminded them that of what the ethics rules are, and that if he violates them, essentially reading between the lines, I can sanction you or hold you in contempt. And the date, what I loved about the order, it was dated my birthday. So I was thinking, thank you for my birthday gift.
yeah, I don't know what the hesitation is with these judges. They get to the water's edge on sanctions, and they seem to, because of who's on the other side and making him a martyr and all the rest, they seem to back off a bit. Here, the judge in his order that you read from basically, I thought, warned again the lawyers. Because when he said, I'm all in favor of zealous advocacy. However, you've crossed the line as officers of the court and you're making meritless arguments over and over again and wasting the court's time. That usually leads to a referral to a grievance committee related to somebody's bar license. This is on the heels. The reason we're all sort of going, like rubbing our eyes and cleaning out our ears about this is like, did we just do this? Yeah, they filed a month ago a motion to disqualify Judge Engoron after he, 6 months after he entered his judgment for $500 million in the fraud case. They're always moving to disqualify some sort of judge that they don't like the decision from. They fought with constantly. This is some sort of weird strategy where when a judge is holding your nether region in the palm of his hands and has the ability to squeeze, you don't generally attack them. Like the judge who's about to enter a 500 or $500 million judgment, don't attack his wife and his principal law clerk and himself over and over again and expect a good result. Same thing with Judge Lewis Kaplan in the case involving Donald Trump being found to have been a sexual, I almost said sexual deviant, having committed sexual assault and for punitive damages. They constantly battled with that particular judge. And look what happened there with over $100 million judgment against Donald Trump after he testified. Now they're going after Judge Merchan. I would not try to do, tilted windmills related to Judge Merchan. He's the person that has Donald Trump's liberty literally in the palm of his hands and will be sentencing him on the 18th of July. You don't have to suck up to the judge, but you don't have to constantly file meritless motions and attack the judge and his relationships with his daughter, which has no bearing whatsoever on anything that's going on in that courtroom, and try to demean the judge and challenge and act like he's got challenged ethics and compromised ethics when he does not, over and over again. And these lawyers don't know better. I said on a hot take about this very issue, the issue of whether Judge Merchan should have recused himself or disqualified himself has already been preserved appropriately on appeal when Donald Trump finally gets the right to appeal after he's sentenced. He can appeal everything that happened that he didn't like. The list of grievances that he thinks rise to the level of appellate reversible error issues, he's allowed to raise when he finally gets around and he's given the right to appeal. He's preserved already the argument against to disqualify Judge Merchan. He doesn't have to keep filing it over and over again and be rejected. When you said the grievances, it sounded like a scene, an episode of Seinfeld. It sounded like Festivus, where give Donald Trump an aluminum pole. Oh, there's Lily. Give Donald Trump an aluminum pole and let him air his grievances. But that's not the makings of a motion to disqualify. Let's turn to what you think is going to happen on Friday, Karen, when we get the immunity decision. Of course, we'll report on it right here on the Midas Touch Network, Legal AF and Hot Takes. But give us a little advanced screening here. You've got a good theory about the evidence. The only issue that's up for grabs, right, is not whether the immunity decision makes what he did immune. It's whether the small amount of evidence that came in through witnesses about Donald Trump in the White House after he won the election by election interference, by hiding the Stormy Daniels affair and the bribery payoff to her in the way that he did it. There were a few checks on personal checkbooks that were written by Donald Trump in the White House. There were a couple of meetings in the White House. There were a couple of pieces of testimony about, the internal press communications department for now Donald Trump president, how they were dealing with some of these issues. But talk to the audience about what is and what is not harmless error and reversible error, and what do you think the judge is going to do this coming Friday?
Yeah, so just to catch everybody up and remind everyone where we are, the immunity decision came down after the verdict in this case, in July, I think it was July 1st. And it held that in addition to certain conduct being absolutely immune, if it's official, right? If it's official presidential conduct, it also held that you are not allowed to use privileged evidence in order to prosecute non-official conduct. The decision kind of went further than anyone thought. It's not just prosecute or not prosecute. It also applies to what evidence can be introduced at trial when you're prosecuting someone for non official conduct or non-immune conduct. And so that's really that kind of middle category is what is at issue here, because as you said, not even the defense argued that the conduct here was in Trump's official capacity. This was private, right? And he's said that over and over again in many different filings and in many different other areas, whether it was before Congress or whether it was in his removal proceeding, where he tried to get the case removed to federal court. Early on, other lawyers and these lawyers argued that this was personal and not official. And and so not even Trump can argue that that's an issue in this case, really, with a straight face. But what they did say was, however, there's evidence that was introduced at trial that, given this decision now, should not have been introduced. And the judge is going to be faced with making that determination. A, is that the case? Was there evidence that now, given this new law, should not have been introduced? And if so, what impact will that have on this verdict, on the jury verdict? There are two options. There's the option of reversal and a new trial, or there's the option of saying, no, it might have been an error and it was a harmless error. I guess the third option is all the evidence that was introduced was appropriate and none of it falls into that category. So he's going to make a ruling. And unlike the case in Washington, D.C., where Judge Chutkan may have to have evidentiary hearings to determine which of those charges and what evidence falls within the president's job description or the official conduct bucket, and in that official conduct evidence bucket. In this case, there's a full record that's already been made because there was a trial and there was cross-examination, et cetera. So there's no need to hold a hearing. The judge can just rule off the record. So that's what he's going to do. And I think that the evidence in question, for example, the tweets that were introduced into evidence, I think they were from the White House Twitter account and communicating with the public as part of the president's job, et cetera. I think that's clearly harmless error if it turns out to be not something that should have been introduced because it's official. The area that I think it starts to get a little bit tricky is going to be in the area of Hope Hicks's testimony, where because if you remember, one of the issues or elements that the prosecution had to prove was that not only did he falsify these business records, it was for the purpose of committing or concealing another crime, and the crime here was to basically steal the election, right? And that's what they had to prove. And so there was a very powerful piece of testimony in Hope Hicks's when she testified. It was the one day I happened to go to the trial, and I happened to see this part of it's the only time I got to go to court. It was really hard to get in, and on this particular day, someone gave me their seat because they had to leave, and it was so powerful. It was absolutely her testifying that this was all about the election. Trump said, I'm so glad this didn't come out before the election, and she kind of broke down into tears, having really, really just I think recognized the gravity of what she had just done. She just sank her boss, and the guy that she admired and who she said she admired. Um, and so I think that that's going to be something, because she was the White House. She worked in the White House at the time. She was, I think, the communications in communications, and she was talking to him. It was in April of 2017 while he was in the White House as a White House communications person. So it was very damning, and that might be one of the things that falls into the category of privileged. And the reason it concerns me is because Josh Steinglass, the prosecutor, who's just extraordinary prosecutor and has a great reputation, and I've worked with him, and I know his work, and he's just a great a great a great lawyer. He said in his summation, because a lot of this had to do with a lot of the arguments were about Michael Cohen, and Trump's lawyers were arguing that he's not credible, he's a liar. And so one of the things that Josh Steinglass argued in summation was, you don't have to trust Michael Cohen alone. Everything is corroborated. And he really underscored this Hope Hicks testimony and made it central to the case. So that's going to be where the judge, I think, is going to grapple with whether or not that's harmless error. I think in the end, the evidence was overwhelming and it is harmless. And I think the judge will rule that. But I think that is the one area that the judge is going to have to really make some very specific findings. And really, I think it's going to be a well thought out. I think it's going to be a long decision. It's going to be written, and it's going to parse out the entire trial and put things in the buckets that the Supreme Court set out for the court in that case. So we should clear our calendars for Friday, because we're going to have a lot of hot takes and things explaining this ruling, because I think it's going to be significant.
Well,
and
with one correction that the audience reminded me of. He moved it to the 16th of September. I thought it was going to be this Friday, because my notes were before he moved it last week. But he's going to give, because I think your old office asked for more time, just like Jack Smith asked for more time to brief the immunity decision with Judge Chutkan. So I think it's going to be the 16th, but he's told everybody, send in pre-sentencing memos. We're going to talk about sentencing next. So
I love our audience. How great that they're telling us the date.
Everything that Karen and I just said is true. It's just going to be on the 16th. He could be tomorrow. It could be the 16th. It doesn't matter. I do not believe that Judge Merchan is going to find that there was reversible error in allowing in the Hope Hicks testimony. In other words, the reason Donald Trump was convicted by a jury of his peers of 34 felony counts did not hinge on Hope Hicks's testimony. There is as you said about Josh Steinglass's presentation, there was a mountain of evidence that would have convicted 10 men, 10 people, including Michael Cohen, including David Pecker, including a series of people within the Trump organization themselves, who all testified to the timeline that makes this stuff not really matter. And even when Donald Trump was within the White House, I don't believe that even stretched to the outer boundaries of official conduct, the things that he did, writing in a personal checkbook and meeting personally with Michael Cohen on invoices Michael Cohen sent in to get them paid, and what kind of press release he was going to do, this or that, even under the murky decision of the United States Supreme Court, I think Judge Merchan is going to find it's outside the outer boundaries. It's not official conduct in any way, shape, or form. And even if it was, we're back to your, it's not case dispositive. It's not the reason. It's not what the jury hung their hat on based on all the other overwhelming evidence that convicted Donald Trump. In other words, if you removed, Madeline Westerhout's testimony about how she runs the daily diary for Donald Trump and who gets to meet the president after he became president, or anything about Hope Hicks, half of which was before when she worked for the campaign and half of it was after. If you remove that from the equation, the question is, would the jury still convict Donald Trump of the 34 felony counts? And I'm sure Judge Merchan is going to say, yes, they would. And if that's the case, then he can take it up with the appellate court, and we'll move on 2 days later so we'll get immunity. It's going to be fast then. We're going to get immunity on the 16th. He's told them, because you and I did this already on a midweek and in hot takes, it's going to go fast. He's told them, get your pre-sentencing memos in. Hint, hint. I'm going forward with the sentencing on the 18th, which is a signal that I'm not granting immunity. And don't bank on that. And don't ask for more time. We're going on the 18th, hell or high water, on a sentencing, as long as I don't grant your immunity decision. So we're going to follow all that. We'll talk about sentencing. We're going to talk about Trump now turning around. This is like dog, man bites dog. Now we got Donald Trump thinking he's emboldened because his handpicked judge in Judge Cannon is dismissed the Mar-a-Lago case, and now he's emboldened to bring a malicious prosecution case or threaten to bring one against the U.S. government, which means that U.S. taxpayers, you and me, for over $100 million. We'll talk about that and the chances of that happening. And then we're going to talk about all these MAGA lawyers and election denying county clerks who are being brought to justice by state and federal prosecutors and judges around the country. But now we got to go to the thing that keeps the wheels of justice spinning on this network. How do you support this network? Help them get to 3 million free subscribers. At the rate we're going to get there before Labor Day, which is amazing. And if you're already a free subscriber, we really appreciate you. And if not, go out and do it. You're here. You obviously like our content. Help us out. Boom. It's an independent network without outside investors. This is how we grow the network, with you, with your involvement. And then help us grow organically. Get friends and family to free subscribe. Hit that subscribe button and get us to 3 million. That's one. Two, support the other content and content makers that we have on this network. Karen's got a new podcast out called Mistrial. There it is. Karen Freeman Knifolo, along with her law partners, Danya Perry and Kathleen Rice. Karen, you got to get back to me. I'm supposed to have dinner with you and Danya sometime in September. Get back to me on that text, will you? But that's a great new podcast that's out there. The unique perspective of former prosecutors. It's not legal AF. It's another angle or take on things at the intersection of law and politics, and that's Mistrial. And we got a Patreon, patreon.com/legal AF. It's I don't want to call it a law school class because we'll get in trouble, but it is it's an informative presentation of the law at the intersection of law and politics that Ben and I are doing. It's Legal AF Patreon, and we got exclusive videos. Got about 300 or 400 videos up there. We're doing Q&As, live Q&As. We're doing them about every month at this rate with Ben and me. And so we've got that. And then we've got this amazing set of sponsors. Every day, Jordy, who's responsible for that area, I'm always amazed by who he writes and says to me, Popak, we got another sponsor. We got another ad. Karen, the same thing. Ben, the same thing. I'm just amazed at what we've been able to accomplish. 4.5 years ago, when I joined with the guys, or the brothers, we had 500 people. But that was basically family, friends and family. It was a soft opening, as we like to say, in the restaurant business. And now we're on the precipice of 3 million. It was just like a year ago, Karen. You and I were doing it was less than a year ago that you and I and Salty made a counter to see if we could hit 2 million while we were doing our show. During our show, right? Okay. Yeah. Now we're up 3 million. We're riding the surge of Kamala Harris, who's helping us build this network. And there we are. And we got some great sponsors, including some that are coming up right now.
We're in the middle of summer where it gets very hot. And when it's very hot, sometimes people excrete body odor, which can be very uncomfortable for yourself and others around you. And no matter where you go, you can take Lume with you, which is a whole body deodorant. It can keep you smelling fresh every day, all day, everywhere from your underarms to your feet to your privates. It's clinically proven to control odor for over 72 hours. So you could literally fly all the way to Asia and back and smell fresh for landing if you use Lume. It is great for hiking, camping, long flights, anything you're doing this summer, a music festival, bring it in the sun all day, etc. But don't smell. I mean, it's hard to talk about it openly, but that's the truth. You don't want to smell, and nobody wants that embarrassing situation. And the summer is when it comes out the worst. So definitely you should try Lume. It's excellent. It's really easy to use anywhere. I like that you can use it anywhere, and that it's a whole body, safe for your body deodorant. It was created by an OB/GYN who I think who for me, it makes me feel much more comfortable using it. all over my body because there are fears about antiperspirants and ingredients that are contained in them in general. So I do think having a whole body deodorant that is safe, that was created by an OBGYN, and that it works fantastic is just a huge plus. It helps you stay fresh and smelling fresh and help you stay drier all day, again, for 72 hours. And it even has sweat control. So experience this for yourself. It's baking soda free and paraben free. It's pH balanced for safe use below the belt. And choose from a variety of fresh, bright scents like clean tangerine, lavender sage, or toasted coconut. Lume's starter pack is perfect for new customers. It comes with a solid stick deodorant, a cream tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice like a mini body wash and deodorant wipes, and free shipping. As a special offer for listeners, new customers get 15% off all Lume products with our exclusive code LEGALAF. And if you combine the 15% off with the already discounted starter pack, that equals over 40% off their starter pack. So use code LEGALAF for 15% off your first purchase at lumedeodorant.com. That's code LEGALAF at lumedeodorant.com. Thank you, Lume, for sponsoring this episode.
Cat food has been the same forever. It's time for cat food to move into the 21st century. That's why you've got to try Smalls. It's time to make kibble a thing of the past. Smalls cat food is protein-packed recipes made with preservative-free ingredients you'd find in your fridge, and it's delivered right to your door. That's why veterinarians.org rates Smalls 10 out of 10 for ingredient quality. My cat, Chanel, yes, Chanel, her favorite flavor is smooth fish, and my cat prefers Smalls way more than her previous cat food. I did a taste test. I put 2 bowls side by side, and Chanel immediately went to Smalls. Smalls was started back in 2017 by a couple of guys home cooking cat food in small batches for their friends. And a few short years later, they've served millions of meals to cats across the U.S. I feel better knowing I'm feeding my cat Chanel real food, not burnt kibble. I can finally open a packet of cat food and not get nauseous. I actually recognize the ingredients in a packet of Smalls food. After making the switch to Smalls, 88% of cat owners reported overall health improvements. That's a big deal. The team at Smalls is so confident your cat will love their product that you can try it risk-free. That means they will refund you if your cat won't eat their food. Now is the time to make the switch to Smalls. Head to smalls.com/legalaf and use promo code LEGALAF at checkout for 50% off your first order plus free shipping. That's the best offer you'll find, but you have to use my code LEGALAF for 50% off your first order. One last time, that's promo code LEGALAF for 50% off your first order, plus free shipping. How many people thought in that ad, when I said, I did a taste test, that I actually did the taste test? I've read that copy and I'm like, I think people were thinking I might have tasted the bowls.
You know, Popok, we've been doing this together now for a long time, and I thought I knew everything there was to know about you. I did not know your cat was named Chanel. I definitely.
I married that cat.
I'm not surprised. I am not surprised that you married that cat.
I am a dog person. However, it's not for want of trying. I've always wanted to have some sort of relationship with a cat. My grandmother had a very not happy cat when I was a small child that left me a little bit scarred, literally. That was okay. But I've had an amazing cat relationship through my wife and with Chanel. Love Chanel to death. And Chanel, right?
The name
alone is like
the name alone is just
Gucci.
Brilliant.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. All right. So we're back. Let's wrap up New York with what now that we got the date straight, with what we think's going to happen. And this right on the 18th when he's sentenced. Has anything changed in September? Has anything changed in your mind? Because there's been an evolution for you and me, and I think Ben to a certain degree about the sentencing. Right. We started 6 months ago when after the conviction, whatever months ago it was. And we said things like, oh, he'll be picking up litter, on the highway, or he'll do community service, or he'll never see jail time, or he'll see jail time, but it'll be house confinement or home arrest, or it'll be suspended while he appeals. And now we've had more time. We've seen what's gone on around the country and Donald Trump's unrelenting assault on the criminal justice system and on judges like Judge Merchan. And we've seen the analysis done by your friends over at Just Security with analyzing thousands of cases that the Manhattan DA's office brought against similar people not named Donald Trump for the exact same types of crimes, even not even as egregious because of the number of felony counts that Donald Trump was convicted of, and then mapping out on a matrix how many months or years they got to demonstrate that this is a garden variety prosecution. It wasn't done for political purposes. It would be you can't look the other way on this kind of fraud, and then mapping out what the likely or recommended sentencing is. Sentencing memos are being prepared by, whether he likes it or not. Donald Trump is going to be preparing a sentencing memo of recommendations. I'm sure it'll say 0. The Manhattan DA is doing the exact same thing. The probation or parole department is doing the same thing. Now, let's see where Karen Friedman Agnifilo is in the evolution of your thought process as we get closer to the 18th. Does he get jail time, suspended or not? Any meaningful punishment as a result of the 34 felony counts being meted out by Judge Merchan?
I mean, look, it's a tough situation. This is a sui generis situation, as they say. It's if you were to treat Donald Trump like any other defendant similarly situated, despite the fact that he has no criminal convictions, just his conduct in this case alone, the stakes couldn't be higher. Falsifying business records in order to steal a presidential election. I mean, that is just a resounding. I can't think of a falsifying business records fact pattern that is worse than that. So, especially given the fact that he won in by 70,000 votes in 3 swing states. I mean, he won by such a small margin. Maybe this is the thing that made the difference, that they suppressed this information. Who knows? And so if you just look at the fact pattern alone of what he did, and you compare it to the 20% of felony falsification of business records cases that did receive jail or prison time throughout New York State, this is, I think, the most serious. So how do you not give him jail or prison? In addition to that, again, he went to trial at the time with 3 other pending indictment. He was an indicted felon in 3 different other jurisdictions, both in state and federal court. So he's like a career criminal. I mean, and you look at all the civil filings, you look at what Judge Angoran found, the just rampant fraud that went on in his business dealings in New York. You look at what happened in the defamation case with E. Jean Carroll. He's an adjudicated rapist. I mean, just when you bring all of that to the table, and all of that is fair game for the judge, in addition to the fact that his own conduct in this particular case, he threatened Alvin Bragg with a baseball bat over and over again. Judge Merchan held him in contempt, not 1, not 2, not 3 times, 10 times. 10 times he was held in contempt for violating a court order. In this case, this judge, I have to say, and I don't care what his name is, Donald Trump or John Smith, he absolutely deserves state prison time. He deserves the max. That is what any other defendant would get in his situation. That being said, he's the Republican nominee for president. And I actually don't think it is legal. I don't think, because of the supremacy clause and federalism and all the other things that have to do with state versus federal, I don't think the Judge Merchan will feel that he can interfere with that at this time. I also think, given the immunity ruling, there's a non-frivolous appellate argument about whether or not whatever his rulings, Judge Merchan's, are in terms of the evidence that was admitted at this trial. And so because there is a non-frivolous, legitimate appellate issue, he's not going to put him in now. So I do think he will be sentenced to state prison, and I do think it'll be held in abeyance, or he will be he'll get what's called bail pending appeal, meaning he will not have to serve his sentence during the pendency of the appeal. I do think it'll be stayed until he exhausts his appellate litigation. That's what I think. I also think the judge is not going to put him in case he wins, right? He has to be president of the United States. So that's what I think is going to happen in this case. Will he also do something else in addition to that so that there's some punishment that's immediate, like community service? I don't think that you can do that. I don't think you can. I think you have to. It's a binary choice. I think it's an either or. There might be a split sentence that would allow, like, probation with 6 months split with probation, meaning 6 months incarcerated with probation, and then as part of probations there's conditions, and so you can impose certain conditions like picking up trash on the subway. Who knows? He might do something creative that brings some kind of combination of things, but that's what my evolution has come to.
Yeah.
That's what I think will happen.
And look, I think I assume that's one of the reasons people enjoy our show, because we are evolving. Our thought process is evolving. We don't just take a position and then, when I'm wrong, I'll say I'm wrong. When I've evolved, I'll say I've evolved. Karen just evolved appropriately based on new input, new information about where she was. If you looked at a clip of us 6 months ago, we weren't saying that. I agree with you. I think he's going to get a sentence that's going to be suspended. I think that when the research is done by the court's own staff, by the probation parole department, and by the Manhattan DA, maybe leaning into what Norm Eisen has done at Just Security, I think the judge is going to have no choice. He's going to have like a chart in front of him of people just like Donald Trump, or who went to jail, or people who did less than Donald Trump and went to jail. Yes, there are some people that got let off or given probation, first-time offender kind of thing, but he's not a first-time offender. I mean, as you said, even within the court process, he violated and was contumacious throughout the court process itself. He acted out in ways that, while the judge didn't feel the need to handle at the time, certainly it all is on the table. All of his bad behavior and conduct, which will rely on the Manhattan DA to point out to the judge, is fair game for the judge to sentence. And I think that's what's going to happen. And we'll have more time and more bad misconduct by Donald Trump between now and then, I'm sure. And everything he does, for people that think that it's only what happens in the courtroom and 6 months ago that goes into sentencing, your bad acts right up into and through the moment you're being sentenced in the courtroom all factor in until the judge finally lays down the sentence. And so Donald Trump has never understood that. And there's always been this tension between Donald Trump, the candidate, and Donald Trump, the criminal defendant, and Donald Trump, the business person. And he can't figure out how to, if he does something that he thinks is successful in one arena, it often tanks him in another arena. He'll go on that interview, that Spaces thing that you talked about, that you couldn't stop. It was like a train wreck. You couldn't look away. Didn't want to watch and you couldn't look away. Same time, he tanked his own stock because everybody realized that the only asset of Truth Social is the exclusivity of having Donald Trump and all of his crazy mean tweets on one social media platform. Well, he's returned to Twitter. He's returned to X, and the market that I know pretty well from having worked on Wall Street on the law side, legal side for a while, kind of hammered him. Because he has so many conflicting goals. It may be helpful to candidate Trump to do these things, to attack the judge, to attack the clerks, to attack the system, to undermine everything. But it doesn't help him in sentencing time. And so this is the problem that he's having as we're watching him circle the drain and struggle, and he'll never figure it out. It's like a combination lock on your high school locker. You forgot the last number. You can't get the locker open. He can't figure out how to go after Kamala Harris in a coherent, disciplined way that's successful. And he's not going to figure it out. Yeah, he's never going to figure out how to do it. She's too smart for him. She's too poised. She's too good at being a prosecutor and counterpunching. And her social media team is extraordinary. And now joined by people that helped Obama become elected, like David Plouffe. I mean, the reason there's three reasons Barack Obama became president: Barack Obama, David Plouffe, and David Axelrod. And I said at the time, they will go down in the annals of the Hall of Fame of election strategists at getting him elected, along with his, of course, his message and who he was. The messengers, of course, is very important when you're picking a president. But Plouffe has joined, and so we're watching that too. So we're going to talk about. Let's turn to Donald Trump's threats, just again, a screed masquerading as a legitimate legal position, a campaign, a talking point to steal a news cycle, masquerading as something legitimate, an airing of grievances once again by Donald Trump when he's not suing the Democratic National Committee, Hillary Clinton, the Pulitzer Prize Board, George Stephanopoulos, ABC. I mean, the list goes on. I said on a hot take recently, Karen, there couldn't possibly be as many conspiracies that people believe exist, because there are not enough people in the United States to participate in all of these conspiracies. Right? There's too many there's just too many conspiracies. It'd be the entirety of America would have to be involved in all these conspiracies. He's always blaming somebody else. And now that he got Aileen Cannon, who will ultimately get reprimanded and slapped back for the third time by the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals when they get around to it in the fall, about her dismissal of the case, the Mar-a-Lago case, because she believes that the prosecutors are a figment of our imagination, that they are illegitimate, they are rogue, that they weren't properly appointed, that they're not inferior officers that work under the Department of Justice and its Attorney General, that there's something else entirely, ignoring 50 years of United States Supreme Court precedent, starting with the Nixon case, and dismissed the case. And Donald Trump said, aha, I've got something I can do. I'll put the government on notice that I'm going to sue the United States of America for $100 million because of this malicious prosecution. Why don't you break it down for our audience, Karen, and tell us what you think is going to happen to the lawyers and to Donald Trump if this lawsuit ever actually gets filed?
I mean, so within the 2-year statute of limitations, they had to kind of initiate that, and within the time period to perfect their notice of appeal, they filed kind of this intention to appeal is the best way I would describe it. And it's basically a notice that he plans to sue the Department of Justice and the FBI for $115 million for, quote, malicious political prosecution and abuse of process. And he is essentially accusing the Department of Justice and Jack Smith and the leadership of basically malicious political prosecution, and saying that they did it in order to affect an electoral outcome and prevent Trump from being reelected. So he claims that this malicious prosecution led Trump to spend millions of dollars, tens of millions of dollars, to defend the case and his reputation. And his attorney that he hired to do this, his name is Daniel Epstein. He's a former White House lawyer, and he now is a lawyer with or some kind of high up person with an organization called America First Legal or something like that, founded by Stephen Miller, another Trump crony. And the filing essentially states that the search warrant was improper, and the subsequent indictment was improper, and that the search violated the, quote, well-established protocol involving former presidents. I don't know where he got that from. And so, I don't know where this protocol is that he's referring to, but that's what he says, this well-established protocol, and essentially saying, what I loved about it was his this protocol that he's citing to. He cites his own social media post on Truth Social, right? And he basically says, look, the government could have had these documents. All they had to do was ask for them, these records. And but the thing is, like, and that's what this notice says, but it leaves out and it omits the truth. And that is what I love about Legal AF, because what we do is we actually tell the truth. Like, it's one thing, right? If you were just an alien from Mars coming down from outer space, and you were reading this, and you see that they said that a lawyer would represent in court, an officer of the court. I mean, we are required to tell the truth. We're required to tell the full picture. When you make a legal argument, if there are cases that don't support your position, you don't leave them out. You talk about them and you say why your case is distinguished from it. But you have a reputation, you have an obligation to complete the story, to tell the truth, to bring it all out. But Trump's lawyers and Trump himself, they live in this world of half truths, or of outright lies. And that's what I love about Legal AF, is that the whole purpose is to give the context and the truth, and to read the filings ourselves, and to tell everybody what actually is going on. Because like I said, if you were an alien from outer space coming down and reading this filing that this lawyer, Daniel Epstein, filed, he literally just says, look, he shouldn't have done it. They could have had the stuff back if they asked for it. And they leave out the whole part of this that's in the search warrant, where the Department of Justice spelled out multiple times, right? Multiple times, both the National Archives and the Justice Department, for Trump to return the records. They even identified some of the records that they knew he had, because it was missing when they turned over the records. And so, they not only asked for it multiple times, the Department of Justice issued a subpoena for the return for these documents multiple times. And an attorney for Donald Trump even signed a declaration stating, oh, everything's been returned, when it's not true. It did not happen that way. And so it's just really kind of another outrageous legal filing that, it's like a precursor. It's an intention to file, but it's a very misleading piece of, frankly, propaganda, I think. And this was invited by Eileen Cannon, who dismissed this case. And so they cite to her, and they cite to her decision dismissing the case. And, I have a question for you, Popok. When is the 11th Circuit going to come in and reverse this ridiculous and lawless decision? I don't understand what's taking them so long.
Well, they set a briefing schedule out in September, and Jack Smith didn't object. Jack Smith is running an elaborate chess game here, but I think he's already decided to pick his battles, and that he's never going to get the Mar-a-Lago case up and running before the election or even the inauguration at this rate. And he's got his hands full in the DC election interference case with Judge Chutkan. Although I think he will ultimately thread the needle with Judge Chutkan, convince her that his indictments as is, or maybe with a little bit of blue penciling, withstands the instructions of the United States Supreme Court in the immunity decision, as do the 2 counts for obstruction of an official proceeding. But he's picking his battles. It's obvious, and he's not asking for things to go faster. He's asking for them to go slower, because he's also within, as you know, from being the head of a large prosecutorial organization, he's got lots of division heads, civil and criminally, that he's consulting with about what to do and what position to take about the immunity, not just for the Trump case, but for, generational stuff in the future for the Department of Justice. Because if they make a false step, then it'll impact future prosecutions of future Donald Trumps, or worse, if you can imagine that could possibly be true. And they're worried about that. So the 11th Circuit said, early fall, and it gave him the right to ask for expedited. He didn't ask for expedited, although I thought for sure he was going to. And so that's on that track. And he asked for 3 more weeks with, as we reported a couple of weeks ago, with Judge Chutkan in D.C. And Judge Chutkan gave him the 3 more weeks and set a date. I think it's September the 5th or the 6th to be in the court. September's going to be very busy now that we got our dates straight. September 16th and 18th in New York, September 6th or whatever with Judge Chutkan. We're getting a lot to talk about. If people thought Legal AF was going to go out of business anytime soon, it won't. And even after Donald Trump, it won't. There's certainly an audience here for what we're doing, which we appreciate. And there's a lot of different ways to support us here. And we've talked about some of them. Free subscribe to the Midas Touch Network. Support other content like the other podcast that Karen is on and heads, called Mistrial. I'll be going to to dinner with two-thirds of mistrial, or maybe you can get Kathleen to join. And I'll go. There'll be a mistrial dinner. That'll be great. And then
Well,
there's
we scheduled it for Wednesday. Maybe we can do like a
oh.
a crossover or a mashup or
I'm
something.
totally into that. Well, that sounds great. We're going to be at patreon.com/legalaf that you could also support. If you ever wanted to know what it was like to take a law class from Professor Ben or Professor Popak, you'll find out on Legal AF Patreon. We've got merchandise that Karen helped design through one of her friends who's an amazing designer. Legal AF. We got, while you're at store.midastouch.com, go on, make Jordy and everybody really happy, and go grab all that amazing Kamala and Tim Wall's gear that they have. Amazing t-shirts there that they're advertising as well. And then we've got sponsors, and it's not just to be clear, it's not just kind of sitting through the ad or us reading the ad. It's, we tried these products. We like these products. We're promoting these products. And if it's within your budget and it's something that appeals to you, try it out. Many of them have money back guarantees. Not every one of them, but many of them do. And we got a couple of amazing sponsors coming up right now. Have you heard about this new bioactive whole food that seems almost too good to be true? It's got thousands upon thousands of 5-star reviews and literally life-changing testimonials from users. Just having witnessed firsthand the birth of my baby daughter this summer, I know that colostrum is the first nutrition we receive in life and contains all of the essential nutrients our bodies need in order to thrive. Armura colostrum is a proprietary concentrate of bovine colostrum that harnesses over 400 living bioactive nutrients that strengthen the barriers of your body and fuel cellular health for thousands of research-backed health benefits. It strengthens immunity, ignites metabolism, fortifies gut health, activates hair growth and skin radiance, powers fitness performance and recovery, and confers powerful anti-aging benefits. Armura colostrum is premium bovine colostrum concentrate, and unlike any other product on the market, it is uniquely optimized for human health, sustainable, and was developed with the highest integrity from start to finish. Armura starts with sustainably sourced colostrum from grass-fed cows from their own co-op of dairy farms in the USA, and they strictly abide by calf-first sourcing, only sourcing the surplus supply of colostrum after calves receive all the nutrients they need. Unlike most colostrums, which use heat pasteurization that depletes nutrient potency, Armura leverages their proprietary cold chain biopotent pasteurization technology, an innovative process that preserves the integrity and bioavailability of hundreds of bioactive nutrients. And Armura colostrum's unwavering commitment to quality control is evident throughout our entire process. They go above and above industry standards and invest in an expensive auditing and third-party testing and analysis pipeline to ensure Armura colostrum meets the highest bar of purity and efficacy, which includes being certified glyphosate-free. Armura colostrum fortifies gut health and ignites metabolism, combats bloating, and you'll feel lighter using it. Probiotics are touted as a gut health solution, but they only address one part of the 4-part gut wall, and most products on the market are dead before they even reach your gut. Armura colostrum naturally fortifies your entire gut wall system, optimizing your microbiome and strengthening the gut wall architecture, which guards against irritants that can trigger symptoms like bloating and constipation. We've worked out a special offer for my audience. Receive 15% off your first order. Go to tryarmura.com/legalaf or enter legalaf to get 15% off your first order. That's tryarmra.com/legalaf. Traditional bed sheets, they can harbor more bacteria than a toilet seat. It can lead to acne, allergies, and stuffy noses, and it's just gross. Miracle Made offers a whole line of self-cleaning, antibacterial bedding, such as sheets, pillowcases, and comforters that prevent up to 99.7% of bacteria growth and require up to 3 times less laundry. Using silver-infused fabrics inspired by NASA, Miracle Made sheets are thermoregulating and designed to keep you at the perfect temperature all night long, no matter the weather, so you get better sleep every night. Miracle sheets are luxuriously comfortable without the high price tag of other luxury brands and feel as nice, if not nicer, than sheets used by some five-star hotels. Stop sleeping on bacteria. Bacteria can clog your pores, causing breakouts and acne. Sleep clean with Miracle. These sheets are infused with silver that prevent up to 99.7% of bacterial growth, leaving them to stay cleaner and fresh 3 times longer than other sheets. No more gross odors. Go to trymiracle.com/legalaf to try Miracle Made sheets today. And whether you're buying them for yourself or as a gift for a loved one, if you order today, you can save over 40%. And if you use our promo, LegalAF, at checkout, you'll get 3 free towels and save an extra 20%. Miracle is so confident in their product, it's backed with a 30-day money-back guarantee. So if you aren't 100% satisfied, you'll get a full refund. Upgrade your sleep with Miracle Made. Go to trymiracle.com/legalaf and use the code LegalAF to claim your free 3-piece towel set and save over 40% off. Again, that's trymiracle.com/legalaf to treat yourself. Thank you, Miracle Made, for sponsoring this episode. We are back. We're in the home stretch of our episode at the midweek. Now we got to turn to all the crazy MAGA and conspiracy theorists and election deniers out there. They're going to take 2 forms now in this last segment of Legal AF. In one form, we got Tina Peters. Tina Peters, you may remember, was the Mesa, Colorado county clerk that went on the lam after she had violated election law and criminal law by allowing the Pillow guy and Overstock.com guy, Patrick Byrne and others, to break into the county election offices during the election and download and steal voter data, the votes of you and me, and then try to use it for their own nefarious purposes, including, misleadingly excerpting it out of context to try to make some argument about fraud that lost in 70 different lawsuits. Well, Tina Peters was finally caught, extradited. She was hidden by Mike Lindell for a while, brought back to justice, and it sat for trial. And we'll talk about what happened to her. And in record time, the jury came back in 4 hours against her, which I think, when we get to the result there, I think, Karen, is a message and a warning to all those hundreds of new election deniers who are taking jobs in election offices, who are flooding these offices and pressurizing these offices with ridiculous requests and demands for voter records in order to try to throw a monkey wrench into the 2024 election. The Justice Department and the Department of Justice and each state is going after these people. No matter if it takes 1 year, 2 years, or 4 years, you will be brought to justice. I think that's the signal for what happened to Tina Peters. And then we're also going to talk about one of my favorite stories, which I've covered a couple of times now, is the story of the Stephanie Lampert, who was the lawyer for Patrick Byrne, the Overstock.com guy, who also was in the Oval Office in December after Donald Trump lost, strategizing with Rudy Giuliani and Sidney Powell about how to seize voting machines, suspend the Constitution, and impose martial law. That guy. And so think about that next time you shop at Overstock.com. So Stephanie Lampert is his lawyer, but that's not what the federal magistrate judge Upadhyaya thought her real role was, and called her out on it, sanctioned her, and disqualified her. And my favorite little tidbit, I'll turn it over to you now, Karen, is that back in March, while she was appearing, she's a Michigan lawyer, while she was appearing in federal court with Judge Upadhyaya, at the end of the hearing, the judge asked everybody to leave and for Lampert to stay behind, like the principal. She got called to the office, and in came marshals and law enforcement to arrest her and extradite her because she failed to appear on a bench warrant in Michigan because she'd been indicted for Michigan for tampering with election equipment owned by Dominion Voting Systems, the very entity that she was a defense lawyer against in a defamation case representing Patrick Byrne. That's the complicated, curious story of her. piece it all together from a prosecutor standpoint. What happened to Peters, the clerk? What do you think is going to happen to Lampert, the lawyer? And what do you think it means as prosecutors draw a line, and the Department of Justice draws a line in the sand as we come into the 2024 election about other people that think they're going to commit mischief?
Yeah, well, first of all, talk about being able to vote with your wallet. I mean, I never even realized before how much that can make a difference, right? Look at who our pro democracy sponsors are. These sponsors that we that we promote on our podcast are people that choose us too, right? We choose them, they choose us. They know what our message is, and this is where they choose to advertise. And similarly, look at the My Pillow guy and the Overstock.com guy, and now Elon Musk, frankly. And I do think people have to realize that you're not just buying products anymore. Sometimes you are, but sometimes you're also supporting you're supporting a particular point of view. And in this particular case, it's just unbelievable to me that that these individuals, uh, are this is like a criminal enterprise, frankly. All the MAGA people, I just can't get over it. It's one thing to say, hey, I voted for a Republican and I believe in Republican values and I believe in there should be bigger government or smaller government or pro-choice, pro-life. You can have, I think, debates about issues in this country. That's the beauty of this country. And but the MAGA movement is not Republican. It's not conservative. It's truly people who will. It feels more almost like a cult. I hate to use that lightly, but it does. The people who are just willing to throw their lives away and engage in criminal behavior on behalf of these crazy conspiracy theories. And the two cases that you're talking about and that we're talking about here tonight are just two more examples of that. It's shocking. And so one of them is this pro-Trump lawyer that you were talking about, who's essentially facing criminal charges right now in Michigan for accessing those voting machines after the 2020 election. She was just disqualified from representing the Overstock.com CEO, Patrick Byrne. Okay. So he is there's a lawsuit by Dominion voting machines, similar to the one where they won from Fox News. This one though is I think they're seeking over $1 billion from Patrick Byrne, and there's this ongoing lawsuit going on, and this lawyer was representing Patrick Byrne. At the same time, she gets indicted in Michigan for for breaking into the voting machines there. And there's a court order in the Dominion case, right? There's a court order telling the lawyer and Byrne saying you can't share any of this is all of the documents that in discovery that are being turned over are under a protective order. You can't release them. And what do they do? This lawyer, her name is Stephanie Lambert. What does she do? She releases them in her Michigan case to not only help her criminal case, but also to spread further information. And so it's just outrageous behavior. Like, again, as a lawyer, it's just shocking to me. I'll never get used to it. I'll never get used to what these lawyers for Trump are willing to do. One day someone's going to come forward and say that there was some kind of magical hypnosis or something causing everybody to go insane and lose their mind and do things that are just not remotely legal, normal, ethical, or anything that I recognize as a practicing lawyer or an American citizen, frankly. And so Stephanie Lambert has now been barred from representing Byrne in this lawsuit by Dominican voting systems. She's been disqualified over these violations. So, again, despite this court order saying you can't release these records. What does she do? She releases them. And this magistrate judge just really smacked her down and issued, I think, a 60+ page opinion. And most of it is just listing all of her violations, right? It's just listing them one after another, after another, after another, and found that this lawyer, Lambert and Byrne, unilaterally decided to disclose thousands, if not millions, of Dominicans' case documents to outsiders, and continued to promote just disinformation, and they did it despite all the warnings not to, and they made misrepresentations, and frankly, there was dangerous. I think the quote that I wrote down, that the judge wrote, was, her intentional, dangerous, and relentless misconduct shows no regard for orders or ethical obligations as an attorney. And the judge also went on to find that this wasn't an inadvertent breach or good faith, disclosure. This was intentional and caused harm, including threats lodged against the Dominion's CEO. So the judge found this is truly egregious misconduct and required disqualification, because it could infect future proceedings. I think she's going to get smacked down in a big way, in Michigan as well for doing this. I'm surprised she can even practice law given all of this.
She's everything you just described has happened since March. This is August. So I've been involved with cases that I just settled a case last week in Chicago against a major institution there that I filed 4 years ago in 2020, and we just settled it last Friday. This lawyer got retained in March. She committed 32 pages worth of misconduct and contumacious behavior, to the point where this was my favorite line from the 63 pages, Karen. The judge said that Lampert's repeated misconduct raises the serious concern that she became involved in this litigation for the sheer purpose of gaining access to and publicly sharing Dominion's protected discovery. In other words, she's just a Trojan horse. She had no intent to really be a lawyer for Patrick Byrne, and Patrick Byrne is behind it. So for people that think, wow, that's terrible, the guy lost his choice of lawyer. No, Patrick Byrne used her as a vessel, as a conduit, to obtain information against Dominion voting machines that was supposed to be confidential and only used under court order in that case, to then funnel it to the MAGA right conspiracy alt-right wing of the party. Everybody from the constitutional sheriff Dar Leaf to every podcast you've never heard of got something out of Lampert and Byrne. And Byrne is the puppet master. That's the dirty little secret that Upadhyaya doesn't come out and say, because she doesn't have to address that in disqualifying her. But Byrne is behind it all. And all the roads lead to Byrne. In fact, Byrne, speaking of, I know this is going to get your dander up, Karen. Speaking of party litigants who attack verbally with threat of violence prosecutors, Patrick Byrne just attacked and said that they better watch out. The prosecutors of Tina Peters, back to our Tina Peters part of the story segment, the prosecutors of Tina Peters better I don't think he understands how the justice system works, better let her out and I guess wipe out somehow her conviction by a jury in 4 hours, record time on 9 out of 11 felony counts. Because if they don't, listen to this one, Karen, they better watch out for being strangled with piano wire and some sort of a bomb or a flamethrower. I'm like, did he just threat? Now, if the prosecutors in Michigan don't bring him to task and bring that before the judge there and prosecute him for making those threats, then I'm just going to throw up my hands here. I mean,
law enforcement saying they would face a piano wire and blowtorch if they didn't drop the case.
Yeah, that's why I said piano wire, and I said
that's outrageous. Yeah.
So what do? My point is, don't they have to prosecute him?
It's no worse than all the things Trump did.
But don't they have to prosecute him?
You know what? Then they got to go after Trump for all of his, yes. And they have to go after Trump for all of his threats and violent. Like, this has become the norm of MAGA. This is coming from their leader. This is what Donald Trump does and says without any consequence in all his cases. He goes after law enforcement. He goes after prosecutors. Look at what he did in Mar-a-Lago, basically lying and saying that they issued assassination and deadly physical force. And then you had Jack Smith coming forward saying there have been threats to FBI agents. I mean, there are real life consequences and they all get away with it. So I think not only do they have to prosecute him for it, but they have to start holding Donald Trump accountable for his vicious, vile, vitriolic.
Hold them all. It's not an either or. Go after all of them. But
Yes.
these prosecutors that are sitting around, some of them who are sitting around kind of doing the calculus of, I think, forget the calculus. Be like the attorney generals, mainly women attorney generals around the country that are going after the fake electors. Sure, they made a calculated decision about Donald Trump, but they're cleaning up behind the elephant of the federal prosecutors, and they're bringing all these people to justice. And if you get threatened, I'm sorry, that's like the old Untouchables, the Chicago way. Somebody comes after you with a knife, you go after him with a gun. And the prosecutors have the ultimate gun. They can criminally prosecute somebody for making threats against the prosecutors. No other way to interpret it. Because if you don't reinstall the guardrails of our democracy and reinstitute our social contract, which is what Kamala Harris and Tim Walz are going to do, then what are we? Then it's just a Hobbesian future where there are no rules. We're living in anarchy. We're back in a jungle. I mean, nobody wants that. That's the greatest thing that I've been watching with the growth's the wrong word, with the leadership demonstrated by Kamala Harris in her campaign. It's what Tim Walz called the joyfulness by which she campaigns and will lead this country, installing and instilling joy again into the country. Forget that the dystopia, the American carnage outlined by Donald Trump. He just did a social media post. Trump himself did a social media post, a racist one that would have made the people that came up with the Willie Horton ad proud, in which there's a split screen. This is your neighborhood if Trump's elected, and it's like a white, picket fence neighborhood and then this is your neighborhood if Kamala Harris is elected. And it's a photo taken out of context of people who are trying to obtain immigration status lined up at a facility in New York. Keep the teeming black and brown people away from America. Vote for me, Donald Trump, the white guy. I mean, come on. That's what he's doing. I'm putting each other at each other's throats, but would we not go back to where we were with Barack Obama and other great leaders, where there's a joyfulness, there's a whistle on our lips and a bounce in our step again about being patriots, about being Americans, about reaching out. Instead of doing what we all do reflexively, including me, when you see a Trump flag in your neighborhood, I would love to go in the middle of the night and tear that down. I want to get to the point where Kamala Harris is elected and I go over and extend my hand to that neighbor and say, I don't agree with any part of your politics, but you are my neighbor. You are a fellow American, and I appreciate your right to do what you want, but you have to appreciate my right to coexist. I want to get back to the social contract. I want to get back to our constitutional republic that's been so sullied. It's just Donald Trump dropping his pants and lowering his zipper and peeing all over America. Enough. It's like enough. And we're doing our part. We do our part every week, twice a week, and mistrial another one or two times a week, and hot takes. But we can't do it without our audience. Doesn't that go without saying? We wouldn't be where we are if we weren't standing on the shoulder of 3 million people that not only came here, not once to check us out. Oh, no, I don't like that. Stayed, built a community, a loving, embracing, supportive community that nourishes us, and we hopefully them, that replenishes me and my spirit about America, about patriotism in a way that didn't exist before, and that for which we will forever be indebted to everybody who's a legal AFer and a Midas Mighty on this network, and will follow us on our journey as part of their own journey moving forward. I don't worry. Some people kid around with me that know what I do partially for a living here on the Midas Touch Network and say, Popok, what's going to happen if Donald Trump goes out of business and you don't have Donald Trump anymore as your foil? What's going to happen to your network? I said, absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. First of all, MAGA's not going anywhere. The opposition's not going anywhere. And people and the Supreme Court, unfortunately, unless we win in November, is not going anywhere. And so we have things to defend and explain on this network that go beyond one person, okay, who will one day leave this planet. And that's it. So I'm not worried about that. There's enough there's enough things for us to talk about at the intersection of law and politics that we'll be on the air for as long as people want us on the air. And the topics will just be there. You know, when Ben and I thought about putting the show together, we're like, is there enough stuff to talk about 4.5 years ago? Boy, were we wrong. So how do you support this show? Watch Mistrial. So if you want a real, there you go. If you really want another podcast like ours, if you want to get into the nitty gritty of the law at the intersection of law and politics, patreon.com/legalaf. If you want to fly, there it is right there. If it's $10 a month, it's the entry level membership, and you get exclusive content you don't get anywhere else, even in the hot takes, even on the podcast. If you want to fly the flag of Legal AF, we got a store. There it is. I'm going to work with Jordy and Karen to refresh the store after the election. Not to say it's gotten tired, but it needs some new products, and I've got some ideas. I'm sure Karen does and Jordy does.
Baby onesies.
Baby onesies is great. I mean, people that are on my Instagram, they've already seen me post. My law partner bought me some things. Attorney work product is one onesie that Francesca wore today. Yesterday it was Daddy's little co-counsel.
Aww.
And then my favorite one is, I'm billing you for this conversation. So but hopefully people see that there's so many podcasts out there. There's so many people trying to do what we're doing, but I think people understand we do it in an insightful way. We don't get everything right every moment, but we try. And we do it with a certain amount of joy, a certain amount of enthusiasm for us, and because we're conscientious that we're talking to people and it matters. And I hope that people pick up on that when they watch us week after week. But those are the different ways. And get the Midas Touch Network. If you love us and you love the network, help them get the 3 million free subscribers. You might have thought you free subscribed already. Go check. It's really easy. A big button says subscribe. Push it if it hasn't already been pushed already, and help us get the 3 million before the end of the year as an independent network where nothing is censored. Nothing. I mean, nothing comes out of Karen's mouth, my mouth. Nobody tells me what to say.
We're doing this live.
Nobody
right now.
Baby in the corner, even on her birthday.
This is absolutely live. Like, anything can happen right now. Your dog jumped in the nothing's edited, nothing's censored. This is unfiltered.
Didn't just came in with like quite a dramatic entrance, like pounded the door open to come in.
I want Chanel to come join. I want to see Chanel.
All right. I'll be like Dr. Evil. I'll stroke her while we're on the show on the next episode of Legal AF Midweek. So join us on Saturdays. I'll be back with Ben Meiselas. Karen's got her show, of course, her other show, Mistrial, and then on Hot Takes throughout the week. So really appreciate everybody. Great show today, Karen. Really love seeing you. We'll see each other for dinner very, very soon. We're in the same city, which is always great. So until our next, I want to give it to you. You always have a way to end on a high note. So so here you go. Tell our audience what you'd like them to know about you, us, them, in your life, whatever.
So 2 things. First of all, thank you so much for all the birthday wishes. It really actually means a lot. This is a community, and it really is a lovely, lovely, supportive community. So thank you all. But what I want to say is, when I was a prosecutor, so I was a prosecutor for almost 30 years. And what I used to always say is, put me out of business. I don't want to prosecute crime, right? Like, make it so there is no crime. Make it so that you don't need prosecutors, or you don't need as many prosecutors, right? Put me out of business. That to me equals success. And I'd say the same thing about this show in a way. I would love it that all we could do is sit and kibitz about our cats and our dogs and our kids, and talk about happy things, and talk about look at how great our President Harris is doing, and how great America is, and that we don't have to do these things. So although yes, I suspect we will never go out of business, I wouldn't mind a world, or at least dream about a world, where you don't need to have this type of show, because there is so much misinformation in the world. But frankly, Popak, there is nobody I would rather do this with. I absolutely love doing this with you all the time. And there's just nobody I'd rather be on this journey with than you and Ben and all of the Midas Touch people.
I think I have a lot of moist eyes lately, because one, I'm not sleeping enough. And two, my daughter just brings out so much joy in me, but I got a little moist eye there when you were giving your description of that. And that's legitimate and genuine. Love you, Karen. Glad it's your birthday. I'm sure you celebrated with your lovely family. And our thoughts and prayers are always in support of everything in your life and everything that you do. So until our next midweek with Karen Friedman Kniflo and our Saturday show with me and Ben Meiselas, this is the end of Legal AF Midweek. Shout out to the Mighty and the Legal AFers.